Hello students, today I am going to explain you the third chapter of Hornbill. The name of the chapter is Discovering Tut. The Saga Continues by A.R. Williams. The story deals with the mysteries and various theories regarding the life and death of the youngest ruler of ancient Egypt, Tutankhamun. His tomb was discovered in 1922 by the famous archaeologist Howard Carter, and since then his mummy has been subjected to an X-ray and later a CT scan. These investigations have answered a lot of questions and offered new clues on his life and death. King Tut was just a teenager when he died. He was the last heir of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was buried and forgotten over the years. But after the discovery of his tomb in 1922, the modern world wondered about the cause of his untimely death. He was brought out of his tomb and recently a CT scan was done to ascertain the reason of his death. At 6 p.m. on 5th January 2005, the world's most famous mummy was taken out from its burial tomb. As the mummy of King Tut was being put into the scanner for performing a CT scan, angry winds stirred and dark clouds covered the stars. The weather had been overcast all day and the night sky was hidden by dark-bellied clouds. The CT scan was being done to unearth the remaining medical mysteries that surrounded the untimely death of this young king who died more than 3,300 years ago. King Tut's tomb lies 26 feet underground in the ancient Egyptian cemetery, known as the Valley of the Kings. Tourists from around the world came to visit the tomb to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals on the walls of the burial chamber and looked at King Tut's gilded face on the lid of his outer coffin. The visitors were curious and thoughtful. Some feared the pharaoh's curse would befall those who disturbed him. Howard Carter was a British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered King Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. Its contents remain the richest royal collection ever found. There were dazzling works of art in gold that had caused a sensation then and continue to draw people's attention even today. King Tut was also buried with everyday things such as board games, a bronze razor, cases of food, clothes, wine, etc. that he would need in the life after death. J.E. Havas, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, explained that the mummy was in a very bad condition because of what Howard Carter did to it. Howard Carter found King Tut's body in 3 nested coffins. In the first coffin, he found a shroud decorated with garlands of willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals and cornflowers, which indicated that the burial took place in March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, he ran into trouble. The ritual resins had hardened, cementing King Tut to the bottom of the solid gold coffin. Howard Carter tried to loosen the resins by putting the mummy outside in the sun that heated it to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. For several hours, the mummy was set outside in blazing sunshine, but nothing happened. He reported that the tough material had to be cut from under the limbs and trunk to free the king's remains. The royals in King Tut's time believed that they could take their fortune with them after death. Hence, King Tut was buried with all his expensive belongings. To separate King Tut from his ornaments, Howard Carter's men removed the mummy's head and cut off nearly every major joint. Then they reassembled the remains of the body on a layer of sand in a wooden box with padding. Archaeology has changed since then, focusing less on treasures and more on the fascinating details of life and fascinating mysteries of death. It also uses more sophisticated tools. In 1968, more than 40 years after Howard Carter's discovery, an anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and revealed an astonishing fact that beneath the resin that caked King Tut's chest, his breastbone and front ribs were missing. King Tut's demise was a big event, even by royal standards, as he was the last ruler of his family. His funeral meant the end of a royal dynasty. But the facts of his death and its consequences are unclear. Two questions still unanswered about Tut. How did Tut die? How old was he at the time of his death? King Tut and his ancestors. King Tut's father or grandfather, Amenhotep III, was a powerful king who ruled for almost 4 decades. His son, Amenhotep IV, succeeded him. He was a very strange king. He promoted the worship of Aten, the sun disk, and changed his name to Akhenaten. He moved the religious capital from Thebes to Akhenaten, now known as Amarna. He shocked the country by attacking a major god, Amun, by breaking his images and closing down his temples. Ray Johnson, director of the University of Chicago's Research Center in Luxor, called this king very odd. He said it must have been a terrible time for the people because the family that had ruled for centuries was coming to an end. After Akhenaten's death, Smenkhare, a mysterious ruler, ruled for a brief period and departed with hardly any sign. It was then that a very young king, Tutankhaten, took over the throne. The boy soon changed his name to Tutankhamun, known as King Tut today. He oversaw revival of the old ways. King Tut ruled for 9 years and then died unexpectedly. King Tut's mummy was one of the first mummies to be scanned. The CT scan showed a grey head, neck vertebrae, a hand, several images of the rib cage and a section of the skull. Egyptian Mummy Project. It began an inventory in 2003 and recorded 600 mummies so far, scanning the mummies with a portable CT scan machine donated by National Geographic Society and Simens. Tut was the first mummy to be scanned. King Tut ahead of his countrymen in death as in life. King Tut is one mummy among many in Egypt. No one knows how many mummies there are in Egypt. The Egyptian Mummy Project has recorded almost 600 and is still counting. King Tut's mummy was the first mummy to be CT scanned to ascertain the secret of his death by a portable scanner donated by National Geographic Society and Simens. King Tut's entire body was scanned. On the night of the scan, workmen carried him from the tomb and rose it on a hydraulic lift into a trailer that held the scanner. However, initially the costly scanner could not function properly because of sand in the cooler fan. But soon all the hurdles were crossed, and after the scan, the king was returned to his coffin to rest in peace. The CT scan showed an astonishing image of King Tut and his entire body very clearly. It showed a grey head, neck vertebrae, a hand, several images of the rib cage and a section of the skull. Jahi Havas was relieved that nothing had seriously gone wrong. As the technicians left the trailer, they saw the star constellation, which the ancient Egyptians knew as the soul of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. They felt as if the god was watching over the boy king. Thank you, students. I hope you have understood the chapter. Thorough reading of the chapter is required for better understanding.